All right, everybody. We are going to talk about the research section for the research paper, the huge, ginormous Worldview paper for research writing. So, what we are going to do is I'm going to walk through just a sample paper of what this will look like as you look at it. I hope you can use some of the principles. So the first thing that we're going to do is we are going to write this in MLA. So MLA at the time of this recording has this type of format. So I'm going to, first I want to make sure that everything is double spaced. So look right here at this thing that says spacing. Make sure that there is a 0 in the before and a 0 in the after. How did I get there? Well, the way that I tend to do it is I highlight everything. I go down to this thing called paragraph. I click that. Boom, there it is. And then you want to make sure that it's double, 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 and then you hit OK. So you write your name. You then write the prof or instructor name. You then write your class. So this is English, and then research writing. Normally there would be a number, but I want to give you the opportunity to find that yourself. And then you are going to put the date of writing. Awesome. So our date of writing as of today is 04/29/2024, like that. Cool. You will then give this a title. It can be as simple as the research section, or you can give it a more creative title, like the numbers don't lie. Facts and figures in an imaginary world. I don't know. That sounds interesting. Cool. So then your first paragraph, every paragraph should always have an indent. So see how there's this little indent space right there? We want that. Never ever ever do this where you have your paper, like your paragraph here, and then you do this weird thing where you give another space and then you do that. That's what the paragraph indicating markers are for. That's what the indent's for. We want the indent. So your first paragraph is an introduction. Your introduction is going to be like, think of it as you are in a library. Never just shout. So we never want to sit in a quiet room. Birds aren't real, right? That doesn't make any sense. We don't want to do that. We want to lead ourselves into it. So think of it instead as if you are on a date. And you want to ease someone into a topic to see if you should continue the date. That's what we want to do. Now, how are we going to do it for this section? I'm so glad you asked. The first part of your introduction will be just a sentence or two of that easing us in. The second sentence and plus, so however long it takes, is a description of method, and that can take quite a while. So we're going to think of this as just a paragraph. So if it's just going to take just a little bit, what will it look like? Well, I'm glad you asked. This right here is how it will look like. So if you're doing the research section, there we go. Oh, by the way, I forgot. We got to insert. We got to go to page number. We're going to go to page number. We're going to make sure that it's a header, that it's on the right side. We're going to click OK. And then see there's a page number right there. Then you're going to do this. You're going to highlight that. You're going to make sure that your cursor is to the left of the number. You're going to type your last name. Oh yeah, so now we're perfect. Now we're cooking with some heat. So then what you're going to do is this introduction thing. So you're going to present a little description of the method and the who and how. So if you're doing an ethnography, this is the space that you'll explain where you went to, how did you decide all that, what did you think you'd be looking for, and then your thesis statement. The thesis statement is really important. Everything needs a thesis. Everything. If you did a survey, this is going to be the space where you explain the demographic of the people you surveyed, your method, your questions, and who you interacted with and how you interacted with them. And then you're going to do a thesis statement. Very cool. Then, if this is what it's going to look like. So this is something that I made up. If I were to do an ethnography, I think it would be really cool to go and see the Insane Clown Posse. I think that would be kind of interesting, I guess, and see how that would work. So the Juggalo is a person deeply embedded in a community surrounding the ICP. In order to best understand the theory and praxis behind this controversial hip-hop group known as the Insane Clown Posse, I believe that ethnographic principles and other qualitative methods must be used. Okay, so we've described what the community is we're looking at. We have then described what community or theory they're a part of. Then we described a little bit about what we're going to do. So we're going to talk about qualitative methods, particularly around ethnography. And then we're going to tell them what we're doing. So I decided to attend their annual concert festival. I've never done that, but for the sake of this example, I think it would be kind of interesting, right? Because we're doing researching about a particular theory and how that theory works itself out through different ideas. So ontology, epistemology, axiology, ethics, and aesthetics. So with this right here, we're looking at what we saw at the festival. So once there, I observed for 2 hours. Specifically, I watched the music on stage and those who attended the food court area. So within that community, the Fago drinks are really important. So while by the Fago refueling station, I interviewed 2 men and I give their ages, and 4 women and I give their ages. By attending the gathering of the Juggalos, I was able to discern, this sounds like a thesis. So right here is our thesis statement. By attending the gathering of the Juggalos, I was able to discern that Juggalos believe in community within diversity. This is, what would we call this? We would call this a map point. So this tells us the first thing that we are going to be looking at. We are going to be looking at and discussing that this community values this thing. So map point 1, community within diversity. So if we were to write this paper out, our very first point that we would be discussing is all of this. Point 1, community within diversity. Hyperbolic depictions of violence to enact catharsis. Oh yes, I went there. So we are going to talk about, in this way, how violence is depicted in this community as a means of release or escapism. So while their logo is of a man running with a hatchet, and they have lyrics that are about, dismembering things and killing things and doing all sorts of things, it's actually a representation for that community of catharsis, so that way they can release those feelings without feeling those feelings through actions. Yeah. So That's one of the things that we can observe through an ethnography. And then finally, I have this other point right here, and this right here is the third point, which would be cultural identification markers through clothing, brands, and tattoos. So this is something that you can observe. You can see that people get together and they identify themselves through specific identification markers. So that would be things like clothing or the Fago. They're all drinking Fago. They all have tattoos. You're able to see these things. You're able to see the diversity. Maybe you interview, maybe you interview some people. Maybe you see some people. So if you're walking around and you see, oh hey, this concert has nothing but a whole bunch of 30-year-old white dudes. Well, you see people, right? If you're like, hey, this place has people of all races and genders and all that, you can see that also. All of these are pretty decent points. We can see them, we can look at them, it creates a good ethnography. Awesome. So now, moving from this, we can then dive into paragraph 2, right? So paragraph 2 will explore these 3 points, and your paragraphs don't necessarily have to be, like you can make these as long as you want to or as short as you want to, but here are our points. Yay, we did it. So now going back to this, I said if you did a survey, this introduction paragraph, which is what we did for the ethnography, we should do. And so I did an example of that. So we have this right here. I kind of copied and pasted the same idea just for the sake of this. By the way, these are examples. Reiterate, reiterate, reiterate. These are examples. I'm going to say it in a couple different ways. Here's Kermit the Frog. These are examples. Let's see here. I'm gonna say it as like a weird weird like dude sitting on his porch. Yep. These are examples. You hear? Yep. Mm-hmm. Now I'm gonna say it like a Canadian or something, or maybe a Wisconsin person. I don't know. Yep. These here are the examples. So these are examples. Please do not follow these word for word. They're examples. These are examples. So do not follow them word for word or thought for thought. Okay? So because these are examples, you don't have to do it in exactly this way. This just is a way to help explain stuff. You do need a thesis. You do need to present your findings. But how you order it and what you say, that's up to you. So try it. So for this one, because I have a specific writing voice and style, I'm just going to continue using that voice and style right here. So the Swiftie is a person deeply embedded in the community surrounding Taylor Swift. In order to best understand the theory and praxis, by the way, is how we do things. Behind this controversial group of fans, I believe that a survey and other quantitative methods. So what are we going to talk about? We are going to talk about how to use specific quantitative methods to understand the community surrounding Taylor Swift. That's right. That's what we're going to do. So then we explained our method. So we have our method right here. I created a Google form and posted it to a Taylor Swift fan site on Facebook. The questions consisted of, now you don't have to list it like this. You can do it in any way, but I'm bringing these up as just a little brief thing to sort of explain how we're doing that. Because in studies, you don't necessarily have to present these, but I wanted to do that just for the sake of this example. Then I give the demographics. out of the 25 who responded. So I tell you how many people actually participated. I give you the participants. And then I give a breakdown of those findings. I didn't do this, by the way. This actually is just an example that I created out of thin air. So if you look, I created an example where 10 out of the 25, 10 were men, and they were, 15 to 35, 10 were women, and they were 7 to 45, and then 5 were non-binary, and they were 14 to 23. So then I give a little bit of a thesis statement right here. My thesis statement is my findings indicate that Swifties believe in deep appreciation for analytic research through examining the lore. Now, this right here, because I just wrote this right after the ethnographic example, might be a little bit more ethnographic. So this one is kind of an interesting point. We might have to get rid of it, but this is the reason why we revise stuff. Inclusivity based on demographic pool. This would be a really easy one to prove through your form here, because you're able to figure out what is the sample size of people and how many people. Like, that's part of the reason why I included both men, women, and non-binary people. And then we've got an active participation and evangelizing of music. Now, this right here, I did this on purpose. This is a really loaded term, evangelizing. This sort of treats it as if it were a religious belief or something of the sort. Some people might argue that. Now, it is your job to avoid hyperbolic language and to try to create a word that would not indicate a super amount of bias. So we might want to eliminate that one. However, again, this is why we revise. We just want to get this out. We want to get this out, and then when we do our revisions, then we can come back to it. All right, so this right here is the example of the research writing section for the research that you're doing. Cool. All right, well, I hope you had a great time watching this video. Such a lucky boy. I'm gonna head home. Thanks.